Welcome back to Youth Ministry Unscripted, where we talk real, honest, and raw about gospel-centered youth ministry. Hey, everybody, I'm one of your co-hosts, Josh Hussung, and I'm being joined with Isaiah and Danny. Guys, say hi.
Praise the Lord, family.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, we're so glad to be back. Last time we talked about basically the fact that we're all old on this podcast and that we've been doing youth ministry for a minute, and things have changed a lot. One of the themes that kind of came up in there was that of parents, and it's inescapable. If you're serving teenagers, really, if you're working in a church at all, you're working with people who have parents. Everybody's got parents, in some form or fashion. But when you're working with teenagers, you're working with people who live with their parents. And that means as a youth minister, it's inevitable that you're going to encounter a lot of parents. And it is an important part of your job. And here at Rooted, we think partnership with parents is a super important thing. But each of us have different experiences with parents over the years, as we mentioned in the last podcast. And I would imagine there's probably a lot of overlap, between frustrations that we might feel about ministering to parents or obstacles there might be to ministering to parents that would be similar to you listeners, because it's, kids are kids. And so what we'd like to do is just have a little discussion about some of the experiences and encouragement surrounding that. So first off, guys, why do you think partnering with parents is better than having no interaction with them? Obviously, at Rooted, we believe it's important, but why do you think it's important?
I would say a couple things. One is that parents are often carrying burdens in isolation because of the various responsibilities we have. And I think it's important that we show up in the lives of those parents, be a resource, encourage those parents, and to not do so would just allow them to kind of sit in that burden by themselves, which is not healthy. And then I would say on the other side of that is we can't we we can't we can't forget that yes, we are serving young people, but we are also serving families in our role. And in order to effectively serve students, we have to go through the parents. They give us access to their students. We have to gain their trust to do so. And so, and one way we do that is by partnering and connecting with them. And to not do so, I think will be a hindrance in our ministry. So,
Yeah. And, we all, three of us, we want to be sensitive to the fact that some kids come from different homes. They're not raised by their parents, or,
that's right.
that, maybe the parents are, just absent or not doing a good job, quote unquote. But generally speaking, biblically, and the research is saying that parents are the most influential factor in faith formation in
Yeah.
the lives of teenagers. And so, my senior pastor always used to preach, don't blame the youth pastor for your teenagers. This is many years ago.
Yeah.
But, they only see your kids 2 hours a week, but you see them, throughout the week. And so, I think it's important that we partner with parents to, I know a lot of youth pastors use this term, walk alongside parents, but I think it is important to walk alongside parents because, they see them, more than we do. But, we still want to love our teenagers and our families.
Mhm.
That's right. Yeah, I think, practical standpoint, I agree with you, Danny. Like, parents have a lot more relational leverage, a lot more effectiveness overall in what's going to happen. So I think trying to get on the same page with parents. So you either have parents in one way, this is maybe too simplistic, but you either have parents who are believers who want their children to have a lifelong faith in Christ, or you have parents who are, if they're present, you have parents who don't know Jesus. So there's an opportunity either way. And it seems like it would make sense since you're a person in your life to take advantage of that opportunity. All right, so we think it's important. Um, so, what are some ways that you wish that you had done a better job in the way that you relate to parents over the years in your ministries?
Yeah. In my experience, I was at one church for 29 years, but halfway through, I changed my title from youth pastor to youth and family pastor, youth and family ministry. And, I know most people probably didn't even know that I changed it, but for me, it was a real, not only functional, but meaningful job change that as the family pastor, I would really like now reach out the parents and seek out relationships with them. It made me busier, but not only, I love visiting students during the week at their baseball games or concerts and things like that, but I made it a point to offer parents, times of appointments and visitations and counsel and cups of coffee and things like that. And, it's just really something that I didn't do as a young youth pastor, but I was glad to do it a lot more and just offer it to parents, in the second half of my time at my church.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of see mine as like a first half, second half as well. I wish I would have started earlier in my ministry experience. Really, just making it an emphasis of connecting with parents. I think I did that better, a more effective job on the second half. But in the first half, I wish I would have started earlier in really connecting. Not only me personally connecting, but one of the things that I was trying to be intentional about doing is connecting parents with each other,
Mm.
in fostering a community amongst parents where not only am I a resource to them, but they can be a resource to each other as
That's
well.
good. Yeah.
I think for me, we talked about this last time, but I think I wish I had internally been less judgmental towards parents.
Mm.
I think that was a thing. Our parents who are believers, like you can say, "Man, you're not," and fill in the blank of things that you feel like you should be doing as a parent. I think having a little compassion, especially like if you have kids that are pretty easy, like I feel like at least when my kids were not teenagers yet, everything was a little more simplistic. Behavioral stuff was just a matter of like figuring out how to do discipline or things like that. But when you get to the teenage years, it's a lot more relational leverage, um, and a lot more just a lot more like play as you go kind of stuff because you just don't really know what you're doing. And I think helping, I wish I had just been a little more understanding that it's
Yeah.
more complicated than I thought it was
Yeah.
at that point. So, that's a little bit like what we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Danny, you've mentioned some of these, and really both of you all have mentioned a little bit about practices, but I want you to get in the mindset of like younger you or a person who's listening right now, and they're not doing any relating to parents at all. Like they
Yeah.
don't just imagine they don't see them. They only see the teenagers. Everybody drops them off outside and they come in and they have zero interaction with parents. What would you suggest are some good starting points for someone and give them some like here's some good places to start relating to parents.
Yeah. I'll just do something very simple. I think as youth workers, we all, like on Sundays, really want to say hi to all of our students because we love them. And I always made it a point to seek them out. But, in the second half of, my ministry, when I became the youth and family pastor, I also really sought out to say hello to as many parents as possible and just ask them, hey, how you doing? Is there anything I can help with? Love your teenager, even though maybe I didn't love them. And, say, hey, if you need me for anything, please let me know. Give me a call. I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you and just seek out parents on Sundays. And again, just as much as we seek out our own teenagers in our youth group, I really made it a point to do that, every every Sunday, really be intentional. And it's something easy, and we already have that heart for our teenagers, so just trying to transfer that heart for our parents too.
Yeah, and I think that's great. A great point, Danny. Using those Sunday opportunities to really connect and with those parents and find opportunities to brag on parents, whether it's Sunday or if you do Wednesday night stuff and the parents are there as well.
Yeah,
When you have your gatherings, whenever you see parents trying to find opportunities to connect and brag on students, I think that's an important part. And I would say, in addition to that, periodically having parent gatherings,
Hmm.
where it could be, once a semester. One of the things that I started doing is once a quarter, where I would gather parents and we would, I would have a meal for them or some kind of, something, where we can have some kind of fellowship, and then also have some talking points
yeah,
around that. And I think you can find resources out there, and I know Rooted has some where we don't have to make something up, but we can
Yeah.
kind of facilitate discussion amongst parents. But I think that's important as well, not only connecting on Sundays or Wednesdays, but also facilitating some gathering points for parents.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, listeners, this is Davis Lacey, podcast producer here at Rooted. Summer is a crazy time in youth ministry, and it's also the season you spend planning and ramping up the upcoming school year. We, here at Rooted, have created several things just for you as you plan your curriculum, train your volunteers, and write out your talks for the upcoming year. We've just launched 2 new whole school year long curriculum plans at Rooted Reservoir. One covers Genesis and Exodus, and the other covers the general epistles. Over the last year, we've heard from so many of you that these curriculum plans have saved so much time, helped you engage deeper with students, and have equipped your volunteers to lead discussion in small groups. If this would be something that would be helpful to you, we hope that you'll check out rootedreservoir.com today and download your free Philippians curriculum to get started. That's rootedreservoir.com. Check it out today.
I think a couple of things, starting points that I would say on top of what you all said. I think both of those are where I would go as well. Would be at the very least, like the bare minimum, I would say, is parents need to be at least somewhat informed about what's going on in the youth ministry or your church.
Yeah.
So like they need to be able to know maybe what you're studying, at least in a general way, like what series you're going with right now. So
Yeah.
it might not be as intense as like students have a parent take home sheet every week, but
Right.
it might be, hey, we're studying the Sermon on the Mount this semester. Or it might be a follow-up email or something that says, this is what we studied tonight. Here's some possible follow-up questions for you. So I think them knowing what's going on in the teaching might help them reinforce or ask questions about what's getting taught. And I know that when my youth ministry kids come home to their parents and their parents just ask a very general question,
Yeah.
what did you learn tonight? They're all pretty much going to just be like, oh, we talked about, and they're going to give something super vague and not really give anything
Yeah.
helpful. And
Right,
so
right.
something that's a little bit further than that, or at least like them have a sort of an idea of what you were talking about. That could be really helpful.
For sure.
Um, and then knowing who your kids' parents are, like the size of your youth ministry changes that. But I think that the smaller it is, the more possible it is for you to be able to know more of your kids' parents.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. Yeah, and I think also just making it known somewhere that you are available to the parents.
Yeah, yeah,
So like when I have a new family that comes, I'm usually going to have a phone call with them just to introduce myself and tell them a little bit about what we have going on youth ministry wise. But one of the things I'm always going to include in that conversation is I want you to know that like I'm here for you just as much as I'm here for your child. And I'm very happy, eager, available, willing to get together and meet and talk about, or if your child ever is having a negative experience in the youth group or is having some kind of trouble, that would help me know how to pray for them or something like that. So just kind of really verbalizing your availability, I think is helpful. I think the meetings are also helpful, Isaiah. The trick that I've always noticed is the people who show up to those things are often not the ones that you feel like need encouragement or the exhortation as much as you would like, right? That's the trick. Is like the people that you feel pretty darn good about how they're doing discipling their kids wise are always the first ones to show up for those kinds of gatherings.
Yeah, but I do find an opportunity for those who are showing up. Hey, talk to other
right.
parents in the church that may not be here. You know what I mean? Like utilizing those parents again, trying to facilitate community amongst the parents. Like talk to each other. You know, y'all don't like trying to get them to meet outside of just me. You know what I mean? To talk outside of me. So
And maybe we can link this in the resources, but I know, Josh, you're a mentor in the Rooted Youth Pastor Mentoring, but Isaiah's in charge of our mentoring at Rooted in general. And we have a family ministry mentoring cohort that kind of talks about all these aspects of
yes.
creating family ministry in your church. And I was a mentor for the family ministry mentoring cohort. And so, we talk about all this stuff too. So
Yeah.
just want to give a little plug for
Yeah,
that and
that's great.
put it in our resources.
Yeah, that will certainly help you formulate a plan to really connect with parents for sure.
Mhm. Have either of you been able to use youth ministry as an outreach opportunity to unchurched parents? Like, have you seen any fruit in that in your own ministries?
For me, especially with kids who come to church that their parents don't come, just drop them off, or they're not parents are not believers.
Mhm.
I've had great opportunities to, you know, I can't say hi to them on a Sunday, but
Yeah.
like you do, Josh, I would give a phone call. Hey, say I can come over and say hello.
Yeah.
Have an opportunity to, just be a chaplain or a pastor to them, and just be able to share, hey, I'm from the church, and your kids coming out, we love them, brag on them, as Isaiah said, and just be a way to share the gospel, or opportunity to just share the good love of Jesus with them. And so I found that a great way to, kids who come whose parents don't come, I really make sure to outreach to their parents in different ways.
Yeah, I think that's important. One of the things is we used to have a group of students where I did not have a lot of access to parents. But what I did notice is that when we had retreats or something like that, where those parents that I would never see, like on Sundays and all that, will come in and drop their kids off,
Yep.
utilizing that time to really reach out, connect with those parents, in person. And so those have provided great opportunities to get access to those parents.
That's great. That's great. I wouldn't say I've had any huge success in that. I definitely like it's been an opportunity to have conversations with parents.
Yeah.
But I feel like often when I've had students visiting who are unchurched, they're coming with friends, and so it's often not a parent that's unchurched that's dropping them off. It's usually them coming with a friend, and so often I think it's been an evangelistic opportunity for other families in my church because they're inviting these unchurched kids to youth group. But I haven't, unless they're going on a trip. Now that would Isaiah, you mentioned that, like if they come with us on a retreat or something, there's going to be some kind of back and forth between me and them because they've got to get information or have their form turned in, or they might have questions that cue a conversation, and that's always helpful. I think that's always been a good conversation as well. Well, we've talked largely about kind of positive aspects of working with parents, but I do want to zero in because I know that for a lot of people, sometimes working with parents can be frustrating. So let's just name it for a minute. What kinds of things do you find sometimes difficult or frustrating about working with parents?
Yeah.
Well, I would say just like students are busy, and parents are as well.
Mhm.
And so it's just hard in a lot of ways to connect, which is why you have to find various outlets to try to connect with parents. But yeah, that's a frustration where we don't have access all the time to parents or guardians. And
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of use this philosophy where this is kind of having to do, Josh, with compassion for parents and trying to understand them. Like it's
Mhm.
their child, not my child.
Yep.
So I know that they have different passions and beliefs. And so I try to use that to try to understand them, when,
Mhm.
especially when they're being illogical or irrational. A friend, youth worker, was trying to go into a mission trip to Haiti, I believe.
Mhm.
We also went to Haiti 2010, right after the earthquakes, and parents were, it was like devastating earthquakes, great need there,
Mhm.
but parents were like upset, like, what are they going to do about water? And you're risking their lives. And there was a group of parents saying, you can't go, and we're not going to send our kids, and
Mhm.
you got to cancel this trip for everyone. And, my friend at his church, as the youth pastor, he had to actually cancel his church because there was such uproar. And I just went. But with a lot of pushback from a bunch of parents. And yeah, you just, I mean, and I tried to be compassionate and understand from their angle. It's their kid and how they feel. But, there was also some parents were okay with it. But you just always have to deal with, parents that when it's their child, they're going to just feel passionate about certain things that
Sure.
you might not. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a pretty common theme is you're going to have a youth minister who is going to be receiving some kind of complaints.
Yeah.
And it could be any number of things. I'm just trying to think of all the different. Feel free to jump in and throw one out there but like, my kid isn't connecting with anybody in the youth group. My
Mhm.
kid is bored by what's going on in your youth group. My kid, or on the flip side, my kid doesn't like all the activity that's going on in your youth group. It's too busy. It's too much fun and game. That's another one. Too much fun and games. They don't like that.
Yeah.
They want to be serious. So like you probably can't win with everybody, right? You could
Yeah.
swing the pendulum in all kinds of directions. But you're sometimes going to get complaints from people. How I know you, Danny, you've talked about this issue with a trip, and that's a big one, right?
No.
What do the parents want in that situation? They want you to cancel the trip so they don't have to pull their kid from the trip and be the
No.
bad guy, right? They want you to be the bad guy so that they don't have to be. So that's easy to see. What are some ways that you found that are helpful in dealing with parents in a moment of complaint?
Yeah.
Rooted Ministry is excited to partner with PNR Publishing to announce our newest book, Body Image: Valuing God's Good Gift by Andrea Lee, written specifically for young women. This book is part of the 31-day devotionals for teenagers series, which includes titles for both boys and girls. In our sin-torn world, even God's good gifts, like our bodies, come with major challenges. Whether teenage girls are struggling with shame, wrestling with questions about diet and exercise, or simply wondering what it means to live a God-honoring life in a female body, the Bible is filled with beautiful truth to help and encourage them. Andrea Lee writes as one who understands the pain of body image struggles. With warmth and transparency, she points young women to the deep hope of the gospel. 2-page devotional readings, accompanied by prayers and reflection questions, will help students appreciate God's amazing design for their bodies as part of His good creation.
Oh man. Yeah, that's a challenge, man. But what are the things that I do recognize that in a lot of those instances is that parents want to feel heard.
Hmm.
And so just being intentional about listening
Yeah.
and and acknowledging whatever challenge that they're navigating or whatever complaint that they're navigating. Um,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I think Isaiah, that's great. Just letting them be heard. And I don't know, not every youth pastor has a context that I did where I had like a associate pastor and senior pastor where I could go talk to, but I would always, if it got a little loud or a parent got a little loud and I couldn't, I would listen to them, but they were just being more antagonistic or hard to deal with. I would share with a supervisor or another pastor and just offer, tell my senior pastor, do you have any suggestions? What would you like me to do?
Yep.
If I have to cancel the trip, if you want me to cancel the trip, then we'll put a united front out. Or, could you talk with me, with the parent? I could do that with a volunteer,
Yep.
someone like that if I can't do it with my senior pastor. But, and sometimes we just can't appease every parent. Um,
Mhm.
and sometimes we still have to go on that trip, but we, at least like Isaiah said, we have to listen to them and say, hey, we've heard you and we're still going to go on this trip. We understand your worry and why you don't want to go and just explain to them as lovingly as possible.
Yeah.
And then you get fired the next day. I'm just kidding, you know.
I
Yeah.
think one thing that I have found somewhat helpful in certain scenarios. I don't. This doesn't work for everything, but is trying to identify and affirm some sort of common ground between you and them.
Mm,
So, like, often if someone is complaining about the way that youth ministry is being run,
mm,
what's really going on often, if it's a believing parent, what they want is for their child to have a positive association with the youth ministry at their church.
Yeah.
Because in their mind, there's a fear that if they have a negative experience in youth ministry, it's going to mean that they're going to ultimately walk away from the faith.
Yeah.
That's
mm,
that's that's the deep fear that's being felt, right? In that way down at the bottom of that. I want my kid to have fun at youth group because I want them to associate Jesus and associate the gospel with a positive experience in their life, and it's going to contribute to a lifelong faith in Christ. That's what they want if they're a believing parent. You also want that. Like, you want them to have a positive experience. Obviously, we trust in more than just our programming to save a child. But you can come in and say, you know what, I agree with you. I want your child to enjoy their time in youth ministry. And here's why we do. And maybe maybe it's something that you can say, hey, you know what, I'm glad that you brought this to my attention. I will definitely keep that in mind when I'm setting up our Wednesday nights, and understand that there may be students who maybe don't like this particular element. And if you have anything you can kind of give them, like, oh, I'll keep that in mind, that's helpful, or an explanation about why you do things the way that you do, and an encouragement on how to talk to their kid about it. So I think it doesn't mean you have to appease everyone, but I think being able to identify common ground helps them see that you are aligned and that you both want this kid to know Jesus,
Mm.
and you want them to have a good experience in youth group, and that you're committed to doing what you can to that end without making concessions that are going to be antithetical to your goals.
Mm.
I think that's super important on that. Well, yeah, parents. Anything else? Any other encouragement while we're wrapping things up about parents? So you got a young youth minister across the table from you at coffee, and you're just gonna lay some wisdom on them. What else you got before we finish up?
Josh, I think this was a great episode, and Isaiah and Josh, thank you for doing this. And I just think for a young youth worker, some of the things we talked about, it's just part of navigating youth ministry, and we're all navigating it, whether you're older like us or a younger worker. And especially, Josh, your example of that parent who so really rooted in fear because my kid doesn't like youth group. It's not personal against you, or it's not really, they're not judging necessarily your performance. It might seem like it, saying youth group, you might take it as they're saying youth group sucks, but it's not really that. And
Yeah.
to not take it so personally, and just try to have that love and compassion on them, because it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's what I would say. I would say we, just recognizing the frustration, the challenges, the beauty even, but keep pursuing and keep making yourself available. In other words, keep connecting or trying to connect and keep caring for parents. I think if I can offer some advice, we have to be intentional about connecting and caring for parents.
That's great. That's great. All right. Well, we finished things up with something more random. And so here's what I want, guys. What would you say is the greatest area of connection that you have with students? Like what's something like that's like totally like small talk kind of stuff that you connect easily with students to talk about?
6, 7.
Oh man, we got 2 episodes mentioning 6, 7 in the road now.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Sports. I mean, that's for me because being a sports guy, I think that's a big connection that I have with young people.
Yeah.
Probably with the guys, sports. Yeah.
That's good. I'm probably more like a music movies kind of guy, music or
Okay.
movies kind of guy.
Yeah.
So the sports thing has always been a like just not an area of extreme interest for me. And so that has been a challenge over the years. Like if I have a group of guys that's largely sports interested, like I got to figure out how to talk to them about it,
Yeah.
or talk to them. I have a podcast idea, all right, and it's called Water Cooler Sports. So it's like a 3-minute podcast digest of everything that happened in sports over the weekend for somebody like me who like knows nothing to listen to and like go to the water cooler at work and be able to actually have a conversation.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. That's a great idea. Yeah.
One more thing I'd like to mention is
Yeah.
with the with guys and girls, just asking them, what's the funniest TikTok video you've watched this week? And they'll just pull out their phone and show you some good ones. And
That's right.
it's a good
That's
connection.
a great way to get a conversation started is like what they want to show and share something with you, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're not on TikTok, they could show it to you and you can laugh at it together.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, everybody listening, we're so glad that you've joined us. We hope this was a helpful thing. We know that ministry to parents sometimes can be frustrating and difficult, but there's so much potential for the Lord to use you in the life of a student and in the life of that student's parents. And your partnership with those parents can be a fruitful thing that can all contribute to students' faith in Christ. And so we're so glad that you've joined us. Thank you for being with us at Youth Ministry Unscripted, where we talk real, honest, and raw about gospel-centered youth ministry. We'll see you next time.